What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you're checking out Podcasting Business School, the show where I teach podcasters how to love their show like a hobby and build it like a business. And today we're talking about something new in the podcasting space that is percolating. I'm very excited about it. It's about how to be a podcast host for hire, how to run a podcast, how to be the face of a show that isn't your brand. You're hired to do so. I feel like this is something that's going to be more and more prevalent. I've pulled one of my very favorite pod pals onto the show that's out there doing this, Meredith Edwards from the Meredith For Real, the Curious Introvert podcast. Meredith, how's it going?
It's going good. You did great. I know those three names together are a ridiculous number of syllables, and I just want to applaud you that you didn't stumble over them at all.
Yeah, we got MHE from MFR on the show today.
I love it.
And we are in the house. All right, so let's do just a little bit of a background on your show, and because I think this is important because you represent a certain type of podcasting niche or type of podcaster that you're like, Adam, I don't have a coaching program. I don't have a course. I don't have a book. I don't have a thing to sell. And you and I have been working together for quite a while now. We're always, you know me, I'm always bouncing ideas around, and a few opportunities started to pop up with this podcast hosting for hire situation. And we just went after it. So, talk about your show, what it's about, and then let's transition into this hosting for hire conversation.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, my show's a variety show, for lack of a better word. It's under the category of social sciences. And when I started my podcast, I got the advice that you have to niche down, but it just never felt right. And so, in the process of just sort of operating without a blueprint, I kind of stumbled into what the show is about, which is about less canceling and more curiosity. So the goal of the show is to incite curiosity in listeners while they're participating digitally so that they'll lead with curiosity when they're living their real life in the real world.
Yeah, and it's an awesome show. Definitely check out the episode where she interviewed the guy that ate his own foot. That's a fan favorite.
Episode 152.
She knew I was gonna. She had that noted.
I
She knew
did.
I was gonna bring it up because I always do.
Yeah, it's really fun because I say it's like I have worms. I don't. It's just me. I have a team, but I like to feature people on the show who seem to have aspects of their lives that don't like that work against each other, that don't, reconcile. So, the guy who ate his own foot, it wasn't for survival. But that allowed me to talk about the history of cannibalism, or the happily married swingers, or the atheist doctor who studied near-death experiences for 50 years, or just the nuances of who humans are, and then how can we learn from that and become more curious in our real lives. So yeah, all of that has been so deeply personally satisfying. I feel like it's just the right direction for me. So I'm proud of myself for following my intuition. But when I became a part of your coaching group, I was the odd man out because I didn't have a specific coaching program, a book, or a course, or, even like consulting. I didn't have anything really. I was just flying blind.
Well, what you did have was a media company, and you are an experienced content creator, an experienced person in the entertainment field. Like, you are educating, you're entertaining, and that brings value. And that's where this conversation is going, because I feel like there's a real opportunity, because I know that businesses are out there going, ooh, this podcasting thing, it's really starting to rip. We should do a podcast. How do we do it? And who's going to do it for us? Like, who are they going to, are we going to get Joe from PR out here to run this thing? Like, they don't know what to do and how to do it.
Let me tell you, it's never Joe from PR. It's Stacy from the front desk. Like, that's how I started to notice it. It was always on the desk of a woman who had a pile of administrative duties, and the should idea, like we should do this one day, it stayed in that pile or that category for a long time. So because I've been podcasting for 3 years, and 4 if you want to include like kind of the planning period of whatever it was, 8 months. And I did notice that more and more people, as I was going about life in my small town, were like, "Oh yeah, we were thinking about doing that." And then oh, you know what really pushed the whole idea over the edge? Mattress Firm has a podcast. I was like, "Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Mattress Firm has a podcast." It's coming, folks. It's coming.
Mattress Firm. Don't sleep on it.
Yeah, right.
That's my
Mattress
tagline.
Firm. We are really money laundering.
The Don't Sleep on It podcast by Mattress Firm. Okay, so there's an opportunity here. And this is an awesome opportunity for experienced podcasters and media producers like you that are like, I don't have a thing to sell, but you could sell your services as a host. I really firmly believe this is a thing. If we package it correctly, if we market it correctly, I mean, just for all you that are out there listening and you've got a show like Meredith, so you're like, I don't have a really niche down topic. I provide entertainment, or maybe you got a show with your friends and you put episodes out on the regular and you get good feedback, but you're not selling anything. So there's this opportunity to be a paid host. Like imagine that you show up, you're the talent. It's just like a Netflix series that you show up, you're the host of this show. And that's the way I really view it, as like the same thing as a Netflix show or a Hulu series or something like The Bachelor. The Bachelor needs a host. It can't just be people out there dating around and making out on TV. It's got to have a host, and that could be us for a podcast for a business or something else. So
Yeah, especially for those podcasters who are also in the entertainment industry. There's a lot of actors, voice actors, on-screen actors, people who come from that production background in some capacity, like I do. I've been a commercial model since 2011. And so seeing how things work from a production standpoint, how it's organized, how you prepare, how you make sure everyone's on the same page when you're not just a one-man show, when you have to collaborate, space rental, maybe even space permitting, and the editors have to have a proper flow of the production so that the end product is delivered on time, stuff like that. I think people who have that kind of background, I think this might be a good fit for.
Yeah. So let's define podcast host for hire. Like what are some potential responsibilities that this person could have and could charge for?
I've talked to a few other people who are also podcast producers, and it seems like there's a big umbrella, but where mine is a little bit different is I work with brands and not individuals, for one. And it's kind of the aspects of podcasting you can't Google. So more of think less Fiverr and more project manager. That's kind of where I come in. So I start with an initial intake conversation where we start with the end in mind. What's the goal and what are the metrics? What do you want out of this and how are you going to measure that you're getting close to what you want? And then kind of going from there to style. Like what other show do you like the style of? And do you want to do an interview? Is it going to be a hybrid? Is it narrated? And then frequency, duration, longevity, format. Format is a big conversation right now because video is hot, but not everyone wants to be on video. So it's a huge pain in the ass to do video, but it's something a lot of people are curious about. It does provide a lot of perks. So all those conversations, and then once we have all that, carve out the details like launch date, episode concepts, potential guests, marketing strategy, and then finally, what scope of talent from me is involved in all that. Some might just want, just help to launch, and then, they're free. And then, or some might want, they have a host. Like I have one potential client that I'm talking with, they have a host and he would be good. So he just needs coaching on how to be a good host and interviewer. So that would be a part of our deal. Others want me to be the host. Others might just want me to do some of the more production side of it, which would be organizing guest schedules and collaborating and all of that. So the only thing that I haven't done is the marketing side, the promotion, which I, in hindsight, actually think was a mistake. I'm working to get some resources for that so that the promotion side is a part of what I can offer. But But yeah, so it's a large scope and it's highly customized because anybody can Google how to start a podcast, but it's more complicated to go, and how what do I want, you know? And
Yeah.
what's the point? Because you don't wanna, especially if you're a brand and you've got a say you've got a board of directors, like, you're gonna have to explain why you need money for this. So you have to have it kind of packaged up from the get-go.
Yeah. And having different options. And I kind of like your different a la carte menu and things you can add together. And that's going to be important for somebody that's exploring this option. Like if you lead in, let's say you're at a local business networking group, like Chamber of Commerce or something, and they let you speak for some reason, and you're talking about podcasting. And then you have a call to action. It's like, and I can help you if you're interested in having a conversation. I can help host a show for you or help you get up and get going. Like they're going to be people from all over the spectrum of what they might want from you. So it's going to be good to have that. All right, I'm leading with this. I'll host it for you. I'll be the paid talent. I'll be the face and the voice of your brand, but I can also do X, Y, and Z. Maybe the setup, the editing, the marketing, whatever, the interview prep, training in another host, having all those things in there. Like I think that's really, really smart. So like when it comes to your offer, let's maybe go through some examples of your clients. We don't have to name names or anything, but like let's talk about a couple of the different offers that you're actually doing, of what they've hired you to do, from the hosting to the project management to training other hosts, things like that. So let's go through a couple client examples.
Yeah, so one is a public school district. And to be clear, I have one client right now. And so it is the public school district in my area. I'm the host for them. So I host, produce, and yeah, I do all the things except for marketing. And they were a client that I acquired through a branding firm, which I think for anybody out there interested in doing this, going through a PR firm or branding firm, I think that's smart. If you can create yourself a good pitch packet, that would be a good place to send it to, because you've got companies coming to them that are looking to add podcasting as a part of their brand. And so that's how this happened for me. Is I actually created this offer, and then it appeared, which was pretty crazy. So I'm very grateful for that. I schedule the guests. They find the guests mostly, but I can't help it. You know how it is,
Yeah.
Adam. Like once you're a podcaster, you're a podcaster, which that's why I think it's important that if anyone's considering this and you're gonna be the host of the show, make sure it's a subject that you're genuinely interested in.
Good point.
Because the podcast world, I feel like, I don't know, you tell me, don't you think like podcast listeners, they're a bit more discerning for BS? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they want it to be a real authentic thing. And so if you are just after the money or like landing the client or whatever, I feel like that is eventually going to come through. So if you're not interested in the cause or the subject, then pass them along to somebody else. So I book the guests and I coach the guests. We have a 15-minute production Zoom call where I talk to them about what we'll talk about, make sure there's no off, you know, hands off topic or whatever, and curate the intro, curate the questions, and basically do almost everything except for um, promote it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's an awesome example of a very robust offer
Yeah.
where you are in the talent seat, the production seat, and a little bit of all the other herbs and spices. Now, I know my friend Tom Singer, he's a paid podcast host. Like he hosts the National Speaker Association podcast, and he's just the talent, which is another option where you can just be the voice and you show up and you run the ship during that 60 minutes and charge. I think he said he charges $2,000 for 4 episodes or something like that. And he shows up. He's the face of the show, the face and the voice of the show, and that's a legit thing that we could do as well. So if some of you are intimidated by all of the things that Meredith just rolled out there, that's a pretty robust offer. So it can be anywhere in that spectrum of I show up, I host the show, or all these other things, but you can build a legit income and a legit business out of this. Let's talk a little bit about how, like, some ideas on how to maybe grow this, how to find people that would be a good fit for these services. So you're networking in your local community, and that's where you're getting some feelers out there, right?
Yeah, I start with whatever business I have a relationship with. And just like you, I feel like, ideas are just part of what I have. And so whoever is, hiring me, they're going to get maybe, maybe unsolicited ideas. And so I try to leverage that. So if I am out and about and I think of a company, like I thought of one last week, and I thought, oh my gosh, they could really have a podcast. That would really benefit them. That would really be a wonderful part of their lead funnel. And that would be a very simple format for me. It wouldn't require too much research, beforehand to prep those episodes. That would be great. So then I find someone in that company. I first try to see if I have any mutual contacts that could introduce me or just give me the right email right away. And then I send them my pitch packet, but inside the body of the email, just, say, hey, just very real, very human. Hey, I was driving down Palafox Street the other day and I saw your sign, and I was thinking about how much a podcast would really support your efforts for new clients. And here's kind of what I had in mind. I've got several episode concepts kind of floating around my head. I'd love to just have a conversation with you if you're open to it. Attached is my packet of kind of what I do. And yeah, let me know if you'd want to have a talk. And that's it.
Nice. Well, I think most of us have, I guess I don't because I just moved, but most of us have like hometown connections and people that we've got that restaurant that we know the owner of that we visit, or that gym owner or whatever. We got these local connections, and I really see potential in this, especially if you're in like BNI groups, Chamber of Commerce. The way I'm envisioning marketing this, if I were somebody that was trying to be paid as a podcast host or, an array of services, I would look for local speaking opportunities at any sort of a business networking event and just teach on podcasting and just your journey, the background of your show, have a few tips on how to launch one, or how, 5 habits of successful podcasters, or something like that. People are going to eat that up because podcasting is kind of a hot topic media term. And then you can make all these connections where, like Meredith described here, people are kind of curious about this. Like, how could a podcast work for me? And how can Meredith or people like Meredith help solve that problem? So,
Yeah, and it wouldn't even have to be local.
Yeah.
I've been trying to network with other producers just to see what they do and what they don't do, because a lot like the title producer in television, the title producer in podcasting means so many different things. Like, so many. Sometimes it just means that they handle all of the back office stuff of the podcast. And that's not at all what I'm interested in. So I think it's important for someone thinking about how to do this is make sure that you start with the end in mind personally. What kind of life do you want to create for yourself? Don't create for yourself a job that you're chained to your desk if that's not what you want. Like, I want to be out there in nature doing things and create enough money for me and my husband that we can have really fun options. Our goal is to live overseas for a couple months at a time. And so if I create something where I have to be in town all the time, no thanks. That is not my goal. But I was all that to say it doesn't have to be local. So like for someone who just moved like you, there are virtual options. I met a producer who all of his clients are virtual. And especially if you use like Riverside, you can actually, as the producer, be online when they're doing that interview. Or maybe it just means that you are, kind of consulting the host on the direction of the show and helping with episode concepts. That's a big thing that you can't Google really. I mean, you can get like a few ideas, but they're not going to be personalized to that person, to their concept, to their brand. So I think there's value to be added, even if you're not in town with that same person.
I love this idea. That just sparked many more ideas as our conversations tend to work that way. So I think if you're trying to break into this space, if this is really lighting you up, there are so many people out there that do podcast editing and production and podcast launch services. You need to be networking with those people and going, hey, and we don't want to encroach on their territory and be like, I do what you do. Let's be friends. No, like that usually doesn't go over well. They're not going to just start pouring referrals onto you. But if you go, hey, I'm a professional host, people hire me to host or co-host their show. Let's see if we could collaborate a little bit, because if you get a client that you're launching and they're a little bit nervous, I could help co-host their show for the first season or whatever to kind of help them get up and get going. Or if it's a brand, I know there are a lot of companies that only focus on brand podcasts. That would be an amazing referral source where you have kind of a jumpstart package where you can just jump in and be the talent. I feel like to me, that's the ELF money, the easy, lucrative fun. Like, I know you got all this robust stuff and all the production and consulting and all this, but if you can get $500 an hour for showing up and, just talking for 45 minutes to 60 minutes, 4 times a month and batch recording those, that's how you produce that lifestyle of, Meredith and her husband are out jet setting in Spain and wherever they're going for half the year. Like, you could just batch record and get all these knocked out and earn money as you go. So and Pod Pals do not under freaking charge for this stuff. Like, I would start it at $500 an hour minimum, because this is like, if these people are selling something, you could be producing thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of revenue for these companies by doing this. So do not undercharge. Don't be like, I'll charge you $29 per episode.
No. And I would recommend tracking your project hours. So really approach this like you're an actual project manager and your time is billable to somebody, even though, you can do it billable if you want, but I charge in packages. So I talk with the client, see what I'm signing up for, because it is always more work than you think it is. So tip numero uno. But then I have project hours and editing costs, because I, farm out my editing. I'm not interested in editing episodes at all. And so I make sure at the end of each contracted period that I calculate my hourly rate, my net hourly rate after all of the costs. And that's another tip, is make sure that you have natural pause points, so that if it's becoming not a fit, that either you or the client could part ways naturally and there wouldn't be any hard feelings and no burned bridges, because you want to, make sure that you can use the product that you help them create as a part of your portfolio. And if they're talking trash behind your back because y'all got in a conflict, that's really not going to benefit you.
Okay. So what set point is working for you right now? Because I know that's my next curious question is, okay, is she doing 4-week packages, 8-episode packages? Like, what type of natural flow are you creating there?
I like 12 episodes. And so I do try to sell them on 12 episodes. I gave an estimate recently for 8 episodes because 12 just freaked them out. But I was like, listen, you can't even like begin to assess your goal. And then I inserted, what they told me their goal was after 6 episodes. That's just not how it works. So I like 12 episodes. It's about 3 months at a time. I try to record 1 batch a month. The first time that I recorded a batch, I did I batch record in 4 to 6 episodes, and I did 3 batches in like 2 weeks. And it was very unpleasant for me. It was very stressful. So I would not recommend that. But 1 month is a nice cadence because of my process. And before I forget, if there's anybody thinking that they would want to do this, but they're not sure, like maybe it'd be in the far future or whatever. I want to collect like some people who have the talent who would be interested in almost like how I am with my modeling agency. So I am on the roster. And then when a client comes to my agency and they say, we need someone with XYZ talent who looks like XYZ, then they say, oh, here's a list and I'm on the list. And then if I get booked, my agency gets 20%. So I'm collecting some people that would be interested in that sort of model. So if anybody is, then just, you can reach out to me.
I love this. This is so smart, Meredith. Because you're out there building the connections already and generating interest, and you are out there, kind of leading the charge on this. And now if we're perking a few earbuds up as people listen to this, like, ooh, I definitely like that idea, then reach out to Meredith and I'll make sure all her contact info is highly accessible. So Yeah, I think that's an amazing idea, because it's like one thing to be the person out there doing the thing, but then it's another thing when you're facilitating those connections and you're able to monetize that at a higher level. So very smart. And now we're creating leveraged income, which I love. And this is just, again, proof that you don't have to be a service provider to monetize without sponsors in the podcasting space. This is still monetizing without sponsors. People think, oh, it's got to be all about the sponsors, but it's like, we still don't have to deal with that. And you don't even have to create a course. You don't have to write a book. You can just be a talented speaker. You can be a talented curator of information, and this thing can work for you. So
yeah, whatever your unfair advantage is, use that. Like
yeah,
everybody has an unfair advantage. I like to joke that Adam's unfair advantage is his radio voice, like we can't all have that voice. And, my unfair advantage is I got scouted to be a model in 2010. So here we are. And I didn't do anything to earn that, but that's what I've got. And yeah, it's not fair, but I'm using it. But everybody has something. You just have to figure out what it is and then kind of carve it out from there so that you can create, a life where you get to do what you want and you get paid.
yes. I was scouted to be an eyebrow model in 2010, like the power brows.
I love that.
I have uncanny eyebrow skills, so
They are good.
Yes. It helps with my funny face videos. All right. What do these people that are considering dipping their toe in the water into paid podcast hosting for hire, what do they need to be ready for that they probably aren't thinking about? Like they're getting it. They're already cashing those checks. Like, oh, $500 an hour. That's so much better than my $0 per hour I'm making or whatever. What do they really need to be ready for? What are the kind of the pain in the ass moments that you've experienced a little bit of so far, or something that you just were like, ooh, I wasn't expecting that?
You need to have a contract. And I think that's something a lot of people, especially podcasters who are, more creative. Creatives don't like contracts
Correct.
usually. But you need a contract because you will need to learn the phrase, I'm sorry, that's outside of the scope of our contract. And because they will ask you to do something that is outside of what you thought, you were going to be signed up to do, and you need to have a way to say that. Now, the beautiful thing about having those natural pause periods, those contractual, cycles, is you can renegotiate that contract the next cycle. So like if you don't have video and suddenly they show up with a video camera and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, that's outside the scope of our contract, but let's talk about that for the next batch that we record. And then you can talk about it and figure it out and figure out what feels good, what feels fair. So that's definitely thing one. And thing two is probably if you're hosting it, you're gonna have to book those guests yourself. I thought for sure I was just going to they would book them and then it would be so easy. And no one has the same sense of urgency that you have. No one's going to care about it as much as you care about it. And, if you're like me, I tend to be like, I'm a lot of things, but like cool, calm, and collected is not one of them. So I am a preparer. I try to really prepare, and that makes me feel like, okay, let's do this. And then the excitement takes over. So if they're not booking it till the day before, and then they're like, hey, can you do, they have no concept of what podcasting is probably. And so they're going to not work within your process. So in order to take control of that process, you're going to have to book them. So those are the two big ones.
And I remember on the first thing, I remember, as you were developing these ideas, we were bouncing things back and forth. You're like, oh, I'm changing this in the next contract for sure.
Yeah.
But that's really smart. I mean, that's very, very smart. And you hit the nail on the head. Like with me, like the word contract comes up, I'm like, kill me. I don't want to spend time doing this. I trust people and they trust me. That's gonna be really, really important. What do you like as far as contract creation? Do you have like LegalZoom or what are you doing here?
God, I wish I was that cool. No, because of my unfair advantage of having contacts in like commercial stuff and TV, film, blah, blah, blah. I actually just adapted some wording from a contract from a local film director, and that's what I took it from.
Well
So,
done.
but
Well
there's a
done.
lot. You'd be surprised. There's a lot online that you can get. So, yeah, I like contracts that are easy to read. I feel like it should not be confusing legalese. It
Yep.
doesn't make you sound more official. It makes you sound like you're trying to pull one over on them. So I really like to humanize digital communication as much as possible, and that includes the contracts.
Okay, so let's like when you are finalizing a deal, I mean, I like how you operate. You like to really create clarity, and you like to like before you do a podcast interview, you meet with the people first and you cover things, and it's like, okay, everything is really, really prepared to your specifics that you want. So what's the process look like when you're actually closing a deal? Like what does that look like?
It's signing the contract and then giving me half upfront.
Okay, perfect.
That's it. Yeah. So that's where I think the project, like per project, is going to be a better option than hourly build hours, because they don't have any concept of how many hours it takes. And let's be honest, most podcasters don't even track their own hours. So that's another thing, that if someone's playing around with this idea, track your own project hours and see how long does it take for you to produce your own show? What's that process? If you had to write down the process of producing your own show, what would it look like? And I think that will provide a lot of, like you said, clarity on what it would look like for another person. But I like the just like the project is this flat rate. And then I always over deliver, because that just makes me feel good, but the contract is important because you need to let the client know that you over delivered. So when I issue that second invoice, if I did extra stuff, my husband laughed at this. He's like, "You really put that in the I said, "Yes, I'll put the invoice of what they owe. And then I put the stuff I did for free, and it says free, you're welcome." Because they need to know, like, yes, I found 7 of the 12 guests. You're welcome. Because
I like that.
as this market becomes more competitive, I think you need to be able to distinguish yourself from other people that may not put in that extra effort or may not have those resources, which is again under that category of unfair advantage. So if you're hosting or producing a show that is in, let's just use real estate as an example, and you're probably interested in real estate, so maybe you have some great ideas for episode concepts, even guests, then you need to, let the client know, like, hey, I have this unfair advantage. Don't show your cards before the contract's signed. But I think that's an asset.
Okay, so I think this is super smart. And even like, let's say you're wanting to do an add-on service and you maybe had pitched social media marketing or social media asset creation and they didn't go for it in the first contract. But then on that last episode, you create a few Instagram images or you do some stuff and you just send it over and go, hey, this is a little bonus. I know it's our last, it's goodwill. It's like, that's probably going to help with renewal, but maybe they go, ooh, this is pretty cool. Let's add that on to the next one. Like, I think that would be a really smart last session, last recording, last episode move to kind of bridge the gap, but also give them a nice little warm, fuzzy feeling of that bonus. And
I
then tell
love that.
them, and then write, I did this for free. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Sing the Moana song. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Nice. All right. So I think we dove into this. This is just a super interesting topic to me because I feel like it could be a missing link for a lot of podcasters that don't want to do sponsorships, but they do want to monetize. This is an option. We have an asset. We have an unfair advantage as experienced podcasters. And I think we should go out there and leverage it. So Meredith, let's make sure that people can get into your world, can follow you and all the places that you hang out, your website, all the things. What do you got for us?
Yeah, the website is meredithforreal.com, and that's meredithforreal.com. And then Instagram is Meredith for Real, spelled all the same way. I'm pretty much Meredith for Real on all the platforms. I'm the most active on Instagram.
And her Instagram is awesome. Like, if you enjoy my weirdness on social media, you will enjoy Meredith's weirdness on social media. It's a very similar vibe. So that's all I have to say about that. So go and dive into her world. And for real, if you all are thinking about, hey, this may be an idea that I'd love to explore, get in touch with her and let's see what happens. I think this is something that is going to be a thing in the next 2 to 3 years, especially. So get in on the front edge of it, and that way you can have the most market share. All right, Meredith, you are truly one of my favorite pod pals. Always love hanging out, and I'm super proud of all the progress that you've made with your show and with your business. And I think it's just really, really cool.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on the show. And I'm just grateful that you and I connected, because it's really helped me a lot to bring intention and strategy to my random creative thoughts.
All right, pod pals. Hopefully this sparked a few ideas for you. And we're going to send you out there into the podcasting universe, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We will see you next time.